So I was on the phone with the patient this week, and as I was finishing, writing his medication, and I always ask him, is there anything else I can help you with? And he said, well, I've had 2 failed marriages. Do you know anybody single? Like, sorry, that's not what the service provides, but good luck with that. Okay? Well, yes, I do have some single friends, but I'm probably not going to match make anybody when I'm just supposed to be performing medicine. But that term failed marriage bugs me. I hear that a lot, where a divorce is the only thing that gets the credit or the notoriety for being a failed marriage. What about some of these marriages where there's domestic abuse, where there's animosity, and they're married, but they don't, talk to each other, they don't live with each other, separate rooms, etc. What about a family unit where the kids hate their parents? Is that maybe a failed marriage? We're going to be talking about later. Apparently, Ben Affleck is now talking about his relationship with Jennifer Lopez and getting married. I think he said he's embarrassed, and they might, and so people go, oh yeah, so this is Jennifer Lopez's 3rd maybe failed marriage or 4th. I don't know. I don't keep count. But I sometimes a divorce is strategic. If you say your vows, I'm with you till death do us part, and sickness and health till death do us part. Yes, that is then a breaking of vows if you end up getting divorced, because you vowed to be together for the rest of your lives, in sickness and in health till death do you part. For better or for worse, in sickness and health till death do you part. I don't remember my vows because I was just so nervous about sucking it in, right? And the pictures, and I was standing on the wrong side. I stood on the wrong side. In a Jewish wedding, you're supposed to circle the groom, I think 7 times. Again, I don't remember. I was still half asleep because I was in my 4th year of medical school doing call, and I only had a 2-week break to get married, go on my honeymoon, and come back. And so after I landed, after the 7 circlings, I guess I stood on the men's side, right? Even though my bridesmaid, my maid of honor was going to be my best friend who was a guy. We ended up not doing that because my mother-in-law didn't like the idea of him wearing a dress and all that. But anyway, so we never went through with it. But I'm standing on the men's side. So I'm looking at my brother, and I'm looking at, it's like, okay. So I don't really remember the vows, but my guess is the vows had to be for better, for worse, in sickness and health, to death do you part. And so if you do divorce and decide to separate and end, or you broke those vows, you bailed when they were sick, or you were not faithful, okay, yes, I could see why failure might come up as a term. But when somebody is divorced, or they say, I'm divorced, I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a strategy. What if the argument is you're with somebody who's bad for you, who's toxic, who hurts you, can hurt the kids? Isn't it successful for you to get the hell away from that person and get the kids away from that person? I understand in society, and Dr. Laura Schlesinger, very anti-divorce. You shouldn't divorce. You made the decision. You stick with it. And I understand that was her thinking when I used to listen to her show 15 years ago. I don't know if she still feels that way. But I look at it as, I think it's a failed marriage if you continue to allow the toxicity and the animosity to thrive. And a successful divorce is one where everybody's amicable. You don't get the lawyers involved to the degree where everybody's doing the money grab. And it blows my mind how usually when people do break up, they want it to be amicable. They're like, let's make it simple. I don't want this to go on. I don't want there to be animosity. Let's just, and then all of a sudden the lawyers are like, well, yeah, but they're screwing you over. Don't you see that? So you need to now go on the offense, and you need to get, and then all of a sudden, the only person who wins are the lawyers. Now, mind you, there are some people that do get screwed, and that's why you have a lawyer, to protect your interests. But by the time that's all said and done, everybody failed. So a successful divorce is one in which you could still be there for the kids. You could still, in essence, be a family unit. Maybe not necessarily living together, in, having eventually new husbands or wives, as a part of this family. And where the kids are getting their needs met first and utmost as a top priority. And a divorce doesn't necessarily have to be a failure. I remember that Friends episode where Ross marries Rachel on a Vegas whim, and he didn't want to divorce her because then that would mean he's had, is it 3 or 4 failed marriages? I forget how many. And so that term has been used since the 90s, 2000s, for years. And maybe we need to look at that differently. Now, and maybe some people got married for different reasons. Maybe their marriage was a complete success. They loved each other. They had kids. They supported each other during the time of their life, but they grew apart. When you use the term, we had a failed marriage, the kids feel like they were part of that failure because the kids were a product of that. So you got to watch your terminology. That's why I think we need to get rid of that terminology completely. Imagine being kids where you love your mom, you love your dad, and you keep hearing failed marriage. And you think because you were the product of that marriage, you contributed to that. Say we grew apart. Say we decided to end our partnership. How many partnerships have ended and it still worked out in their favor? Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, right? I believe they're not married. Does that mean it's failed? No, they have a very successful relationship. They chose not to marry. I believe that's still the case. But so if they break up, would that still be considered a failed? Oh, well, it's not a failed marriage because they weren't married. I think we're using these terms wrong. And I'm surprised they're still being used. So, my patient out there, I hope he finds love. I hope he finds a partnership. For those individuals who have multiple divorces or multiple issues in terms of finding a partner, why is that? Is it that you're forcing yourself to live with somebody you really don't want to live with? Is it that some people can't really live with other people? Is it that you haven't found your one true love? And with your one true love, they could burp, throw up, have diarrhea. Anything they do is magical. But for most of us, no. We put up with a lot. Okay, a fart will still stink, all right? Whether it's your true love or not. And so maybe you also need a sense of be more realistic. And this idea of marriage, I'm a proponent of. I love the idea of getting married. I got married. I hope my boys get married. I'm a big fan of that. But I think there's so much pressure that, you can't fight. You can't, not want to be in the same room with them sometimes. You not want to. And it blows my mind how naive people are about relationships. It's very normal to want your own space. It's very normal to sometimes just want to go out with the guys. Just go out with your friends. It's very normal to sometimes want to sleep on a couch or in another room. If the other person snores, it keeps you up. If you get a better night's sleep, how many couples are freaked out because they get a better night's sleep sleeping alone? You can still be intimate and have sex, but then you might sleep better. However you sleep better, you sleep better. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a failed marriage. 1-877